All right, so the last video I was making, the battery died, and you like my little intellectual glasses? What do you think? I got them at Aldi. They were $3.99. Anyway, it reminds me of that guy from the Gaza Strip that came to our church and said that white people are evil, or basically, if you're white, you owe black people a debt, and you have to go through the rest of your life with a stigma hanging over your head because of the color of your skin. Yeah, that guy was a real piece of work. He was a real genius, a real academic, a real intellectual. Yeah, brilliant, right? Because a person's character is determined by the color of their skin, right? Is that how it goes? Is that the way intellectualism works these days? I think it is, actually, believe it or not. And I think that's probably one of their higher accomplishments, that particular idea. I mean, they go much lower than that, trust me. But yeah, my pastor Glenn Money made a big deal to say that this guy was an accomplished author. I'm just sitting there like, you're kidding me, right? I mean, do you not know that people know that anybody can publish a book on Amazon.com for $3? I mean, you know, having a book is not a big deal. I mean, that's just not a big deal, you know. I mean, if you like to write and you want to publish, that's great. I mean, that's wonderful. That's you, and you know, expressing yourself and what have you, and what you know, whatever, you know. But I mean, it's not like, ooh, I give you special respect because you published a book. No, it doesn't work like that. I mean, our elite, right? Our credentialed, titled people, they're living in a world that's been gone for 30 years. Nobody cares about these stupid titles. Nobody cares about these stupid little letters at the ends of people's names. That's a bygone era, a fantasy world. It always was a fantasy world. It's just now everybody knows it, you know. But that's another video, and I do want to make one about that, because that's definitely a bygone era. I mean, the way things work these days is you have to wake up in the morning and prove yourself every single day. You know, it's interesting to me because the was it the Pilgrims? Yeah, the Pilgrims left Europe to get away from the monarchy, you know, from the lineage-based reward system of Europe, and not just Europe. I mean, a lot of cultures have that. You know, who's your daddy? You know, that kind of a thing. You kind of skate along in life based upon what your ancestors did. You know, and so they got away from all that, and I think that's great. It's not entirely true, of course, because you still have people like the Bushes who have their own little dynasty going on. You have the Clintons who have their own dynasty. You have, you know, basically anybody who becomes really, really wealthy, you know, has the ability to pass that on to their children. But it's just not quite as explicit and entrenched and absolute, I guess we might say, as it was and still is, I guess, in certain places in the world. And yet, to me, that was like a foreshadow. That's like a hint of an even greater truth. And that greater truth is that nobody should really be allowed to skate through today based upon what they did yesterday, you know? Now, when I say skate, I don't mean that they should receive no reward for what they did yesterday. Certainly, I mean, if you did something great yesterday, well, and that reward carries over today, then fine. Then, you know, enjoy that reward. You earned it, you know? But don't think that because you did something great yesterday, that today you are above reproach. You are above being challenged. You are above being questioned. You are above anybody, for anything, to any degree, in any context. You're not above. No matter what we do yesterday, we are all shoulder to shoulder and eye to eye, at eye to eye level with each other all the time. Now, if what you did yesterday empowers you to do great things today, well then, by all means, you deserve the applause of today. and you deserve the respect and the honor that whatever you do today gives you today. But if you're not doing anything today, and you got all this pride and all this ego and all this blowfish, puffed up, protuberated, hot air in your soul about what you did yesterday, and you're just like going through life like a big balloon, you know, like that little girl in the Charlie's Chocolate Factory, Charlie, whatever that movie is called, where she ate the blueberries and she blew up. You know, if you're just going through life like that, well, that's just no good. No, we're supposed to be nimble and lean, you know, not fat and slothful. We're supposed to be nimble, and I'm not talking about physical characteristics. I'm talking about in our spirits, you know, in our spirits, in our emotions, in our intellect. We're supposed to be nimble and lean, you know, nimble, lean, flexible. What's the word? Tensile. Is that right? Is that the right word? Tensile. You know, flexible but strong. You know, you know, what we see so often, in my opinion, and in my experience, is people that are so puffed up with pride over some affiliation that they had with some institution 20 years ago, or 2 years ago, or 4 years. It's like they think they don't have to do anything great today, and it's like, no, that's absurd. That's absurd. You deserve to be able to enjoy the reward for what you did yesterday, but you still have to do great things today. And as a matter of fact, whatever you did 2 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 40 years ago, whatever, to earn some little title and get some little piece of paper with a little gold star on it, or some little ribbon and a little medal, or whatever, a little medallion, a little lanyard, I mean, whatever, you know, whatever you did, it's only supposed, that is supposed to be like the spark that ignites a rocket that flies, not, you know, like I don't know what, like, you know, not like a buffet where you go and you get so full you can't even walk out the door, you know? I mean, yeah. So anyway, I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent, but too late, right? That's a big tangent. So yeah, those are my little intellectually, if I want to say something really intellectual, something really profoundly stupid, and expect to be taken seriously while I'm saying it, I put on my little intellectual jacket, my little intellectual glasses, and talk about books I published on Amazon, and try to act like a bigwig and try to trick everybody into listening to me when in fact what I deserve is to have food thrown at me, you know. But that's what they do. They trick people. They trick people with theater and pretense into listening to their nonsense, and really just complete and total trash. You know, it's like gold and platinum and silver-plated trash. So, and I just missed my exit. Now I'm going the wrong way. Oh well, I'll figure it out. But, yeah, as I was finishing up there, I just want to follow up. This is a different day, so it might be a little bit disconnected topically, but definitely that digression is disconnected. But I was talking about Max Lucado, then I started talking about Barack Obama and his friends and whatnot and so forth, and now I'm trying to remember what I wanted to say because I forgot. There was something else that I wanted to say, and it seemed important when I knew what it was. So yeah, I was talking about Max Lucado making this big fanfare about just this theatrical nonsense about coming out with his political point of whatever. I mean, it's just the biggest pile of trash you've ever seen in your life, you know. And you know, because he doesn't like Donald Trump, but you know, he doesn't think Donald Trump has good character. Well, apparently, you know, it's like they say, your silence speaks the loudest. You know, you didn't say anything was when Bill Clinton was settling, or Max Lucado didn't say anything when Bill Clinton was settling rape lawsuits, you know, or rape cases, paying women hundreds of thousands of dollars just to go away. You know, you didn't mind that. You didn't mind that man being the president, a rapist, but you don't like Donald Trump being a rapist because he doesn't live up to your church lady requirements. I mean, the truth of Donald Trump is that if he's like anybody in the Bible, he's like David, or maybe Solomon, you know. And I'm not justifying I'm not just trying to justify Donald Trump's bad behavior. I'm just stating the fact as the fact. I mean, you know, that's all. I mean, he's in big trouble right now because supposedly he had sex with a prostitute. I mean, 20 years ago or 10 years ago. I mean, come on, give me a break. This is like preschool. It's ridiculous. It's like it's like middle school glee club. I mean, James Comey and all these idiots running around saying the most unbelievably inane, absurd, stupid, pathetic things and getting on the front pages of these ridiculous news shows. I mean, it's absurd, you know? And Max Lucado doesn't mind having a president who's a homosexual, whose wife's probably or could be a transgender. He doesn't mind that, you know? The president who funds terrorists and who creates terrorist organizations and protects terrorists, you know? And runs around for 8 years. We're going to get those ISIS guys. We're going to get them, boy. I tell you, we're doing a really good job, but it's just really tough. These guys are tough. You know, 2 weeks after he called ISIS the JV team, you know, and while we have pictures of ISIS fighters coming out in the news, and they're like children. They're like 8-year-olds with guns. That's who some of the ISIS fighters are. And Barack Obama can't defeat them with the American military. Yeah, he can't defeat them because he's helping them. He's protecting them. He's funding them. He's giving them weapons, you know. He's using them as like a gangster who has somebody that does his dirty work, you know. But the gangster gets to sit up there in his mansion in his $3,500 suits, you know, and attend charity events all day long, you know, to give himself a good name. But all the while, his capos or whatever are texting his gangster, you know, his hitmen or whatever, telling them who to hit, you know. That's all it is. It's just Gangsterville extrapolated up to the international level. That's all ISIS is. They're just like hired gangsters. But instead of giving them, you know, $100,000 a month, you give them $100 million a month, or, you know, whatever. So, so Max Lucado doesn't mind all that, but supposedly he has this great, profound moral objection to the fact that Donald Trump has character that is roughly equivalent to like King David or Solomon in the Old Testament. I mean, this is what I call an abyss. This is what I think of as being an abyss. When somebody like Max Lucado does this type of thing and goes out there and takes this great theatrical, big whoop-de-doo, frumpity-frump, pumpity-pump stance, right? But then you start peeling away the layers. And it's like you just go like this with your hands and you just wave all the smoke away. And the smoke just goes away. And that's his whole production. It's just boom, it's just gone like this. And then what you're looking at is a black hole. That's all there is a black hole. It's a hole with no bottom, no identifiable sides. It's just a hole, it's just an abyss. There's just nothing there. I mean, there's not even death. It's no life, there's no death, it's just nothing. It's just a giant scam. That's all it was. That's all Max Lucado is as far as I'm concerned. He's a giant scam. A big, giant, elaborate scam. And I see this is like a military operation. If you have a military operation against an enemy, right? And your enemy is intractable. You cannot reach them. You know, you can't touch them. They're so well defended that you cannot touch them. You have no choice. You have to become very sophisticated in your approach. And sophistication generally implies patience, okay? Because there's no 1-2 punch against this type of an enemy, you know? A 1-2 punch isn't an option. You've got to, like, buckle down and get really, 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 really serious and really focused and just worm your way in. You know, just worm your way in somewhere, anywhere. It doesn't matter where. Just worm your way in somewhere into your enemy's organization. And that's it. That's all. Just worm your way in. Then once you've wormed your way in, you reassess. Okay, now what are our options? You know, you get somebody in there in your enemy's organization that you know, controls or has some influence or some kind of position in the water supply, you know? Okay, well, it's not, like I said, there's no 1-2 punch. It might sound really promising, but like I said, your enemy is intractable. You can't touch them. Now, you got this guy that has some influence in the organization that supplies your enemy with water. I mean, that sounds really promising, right? Because you could do stuff with that. It's not that hard to imagine what you could theoretically do. But the point is, you have your person in there. Now, you're sophisticated because you have no choice. Taking a crude approach is not an option with this enemy, because this enemy is themselves very sophisticated. They're intractable. You can't touch them, right? So you just got to let that guy sit there for a while. And he's basically got to be unidentifiable as to what his true identity, his true motives, and his true objective is. So he's got to do whatever job he's been given. He has to do it. You know, if it's to turn the valves at a certain time of the day, every day, well, he has to do that. And he has to do that job perfectly. You know, he has to be not only a model employee of the water, the utilities organization, company, whatever it is, division, agency, you know. He's got to be not, but ideally, this is where it gets really interesting. Ideally, he has to be an exemplary employee, okay? Now, why is that? Well, because exemplary employees are granted expanded responsibilities, right? So that's what it is, in my opinion. They put people like Max Lucado, these fake, treasonous, mealy-mouthed, traitorous, scummy, lying, backstabbing, quizzling, I mean, just evil, nasty people into these positions of trust and honor in society. America's pastor. Ooh. I mean, if you ever hear somebody with a big frickin' frumpity-frump, pompity-pomp title like America's pastor, you should be automatically suspicious. I mean, nobody gets a title that big unless they're tied up with some corrupt people. I mean, that's like, see, the corrupt people want to rise to the top, and they don't want to rise to the top on the basis of excellence. They want to rise to the top on the basis of power and control, right? So they install their people with these. You can sort of see the reflection of their ambitions in the people that they install, because their ambitions, their attitude, their spirit, their outlook, their approach, it kind of like rubs off on the people that they handpick to do their bidding, right? They're lackeys, they're sycophants, they're lapdogs, you know? So they give them titles like America's this, America's that. Oh, look at me, you know? So that's the way I look at it. Now, question is it a crazy conspiracy like Max Lucado is like literally associated with the CIA, and you know he was installed to pretend to be the world's greatest pastor, and his job was to be the world's greatest pastor until such time that they need him, should they ever need him, and then he's going to know what to do when they need him, because that's part of the deal, right? I don't know. I don't think it really matters one way or another. He's either officially that kind of person, or the people in control, whether it's the CIA, whether it's the Council on Foreign Relations, whether it's one of George Soros' thousands of nonprofit organizations that run around the world, overturning governments and just creating chaos, and you know, basically in places where he has short invested the economy and whatnot, so he makes billions of dollars when the economy crashes. However all that works, he knows how it works. I don't know how it works. I'm not a billionaire, he is. So kudos to him. Congratulations, Mr. Soros. You get paid a lot of money to be completely evil. Congratulations. So whether Max Lucado has some type of official affiliation, or is he just a product of the culture that these organizations create? Because they create a culture. You know, when you have billions of dollars, you can hire thousands of people. If you sign somebody's paycheck, you have the opportunity to infect or inculcate or endow your ideology into their lifestyle, because they're going to do your bidding to a certain degree, and everybody's different, but I'm just saying, on average, you know, people are going to do your bidding if you sign their paychecks. So, and like I said, everybody's different, you know, so, but some people will totally sell out, completely, totally. I mean, they're so focused on making money and having ambition and being successful that they don't even have a conscience. They don't even have an identifiable. They don't have a distinct identity of their own. They don't have a conscience of their own. They don't have a moral code of their own. And if they do, it's so loosely held, you know, relative to how big their ambitions are and how focused they are on making money and rising up and being successful and having the house that their mommy and daddy always wanted them to have, and the sending their kids to the schools that they were raised to have the expectation that their children would attend, and this and that and that and this and yada 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 yada, you know, all that stuff. It's subconscious in many cases, you know, but it is what it is. I mean, so the point is that if you're signing somebody's paycheck, well, then you have that power to control people's, you know, basically their minds, more or less. I mean, everybody to a different degree, but, you know, yeah. I mean, people are gonna sit there and ask themselves, okay, should I adopt this attitude because my employer wants me to, or do I buck up against my employer and risk either not advancing in the organization, possibly being terminated at worst, but at best, you know, I won't get advanced as quickly as the people who enthusiastically embrace what my employer wants us to embrace, you know. So that's the way it works. So these billionaires, they employ thousands of people. With these thousands of people, then they themselves go out and employ people, you know, because you have vendors, they have their own sets of employees, and they just have influence in society. So they can do stuff. They can create a culture. They can create a cultural wind. They can create a cultural current. They can have an effect on culture. They can create sparks that act as catalysts for bigger movements. So is Max Lucado just a product of all of that? It's possible. In my opinion, it doesn't really matter which one it is. And in my opinion, it could be either one. It literally could be either one. I tend to lean towards the more conspiratorial, because his just the way the whole thing played out, like with great fanfare and great pretentious, self-righteous, like, oh, I'm violating my long-standing code. Oh, like we're all supposed to just be awestruck and wowed with the fact that this America's pastor is violating his code because the situation at hand is so grave, you know. It's like, no, Master Lucado, we're not impressed. You just exposed yourself as a lackey of some evil, nasty, I mean, just truly nasty scumbags, which means there's a good chance you're an evil, nasty scumbag yourself. There's a very good chance of that. Because we know people can fake things for years and years and years. We know people have public personas and they have private personas. We know that. There are no more secrets like that. Those days of the public persona, whether it's Marilyn Monroe or Hugh Grant or whatever, whatever their names were, who cares? Those days are gone. I mean, the public is informed. We're not fooled by these little pretentious, pompous displays of kabuki theater, you know? Kabuki theater, from what I understand, is like that hyper dramatic Japanese stuff where they're just like, you know, they're just super hyper dramatic, like ridiculously dramatic. But I mean, once you're in the environment and you're, you know, whatever, I mean, I guess it's enjoyable if you're part of the culture and you understand it. I don't understand it, so I don't think I would enjoy it, at least not for the first 10 minutes. Maybe after 10 minutes, I'd be like, hey, it's actually pretty cool. But, you know, to the casual observer, it's just hyper ridiculously dramatic, and that's the way this whole thing played out. It just looks too contrived, too scripted, and just really just too absurd. You know, you bring your daughter into a presidential race. You bring and within the context of the candidate dating your daughter. I mean, what in the world, man? That's freakish. That's like bizarro world. See, something is wrong. This is not like normal. To me, this is not like this is not like Max Lucado is just a product of a culture. No, this is something much weirder than that. Much weirder than that. So there is something else I wanted to say. I finally remember what it was. This is getting really long, so I'm going to turn this one off and start a new one, because this will just blow up and then it will be an unplanned termination. I'd rather have a termination. So I'm going to turn this off and start a new one. Thanks for listening.